Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of some books that I have recently unhauled and some recent DNFs from the past couple of months. Kicking off the DNFs, the first one that I'll mention would be Fable. This is one that I didn't have on any TBRs recently. I actually picked it up because I DNF'd another book and I was like, okay, well, I DNF'd this book from my TBR, so I'll go ahead and pick up this other one, kind of swap it in, and I ended up DNFing this one too. So Fable follows a girl who has been stranded basically on this island with some other kind of criminal-like people. And her father, you don't really know what happened, but you know he left her on this island, and now she is scraping by trying to earn enough so that she can get off this island and kind of confront her father. I just was never particularly engrossed in this story, and I thought that the writing was nice, and I thought the descriptions were really good, but I just didn't find myself very interested, and it would start to feel like tense moments were coming, and I'm like, I don't care. And I'm going to try to be better about saying I felt bad, but I wasn't clicking with it. I've heard so many good things, and so many people seem to really love it, and I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's just a slower start, because even a lot of the people that love it say it is a slower moving story. But looking at some of the people who didn't love the book, it seemed like a lot of what they were feeling was what I was feeling, and I was thinking I'm just going to probably keep feeling this way as I try to push through this book, and better that I take it in and somebody can get it for a discounted price at one of our local bookstores. So I actually will be taking this one in soon. It's the only one that I haven't taken in yet. The book that I actually DNF'd right before this one was The Queen's Rising, which I'm really bummed about. I thought I was going to really like this one. It follows this girl who goes to this school, and it's very, very small amount of students, only a handful of students, and they have to master a specific skill. They call it a passion. And our main character, she doesn't really have any training in any of the skills when her grandfather brings her to this place, but she is kind of allowed in for her own safety. You don't know who her real father is, and you don't know why the school accepted her, but now she's made a strong effort to excel and do what she can. And then things kind of take a turn, and she starts to kind of go more into the lore of the kind of family history and politics of their world. She kind of gets caught up in that. But strangely enough, I felt like once it got to that section, which should have been the thing that was really up my alley, it felt like it moved a little too fast. So the character would basically have just been introduced to people, and she's kind of already treating them like their family, and they're all in it together. And I'm like, you just met these people though. And I mean, I really liked the writing. I would absolutely read something else by this author. And I think the very beginning of the book, where she's kind of at the school and it's sort of, oh no, am I gonna get my degree almost, is sort of what it's like. Like, am I gonna graduate is the vibe at the beginning. And it was slower and not a whole lot was happening, but I actually liked that part more because the relationships were already established. Because when she would talk about, oh, well, my friend, it's like, you know that she's known this person for the last however many years she's been at this school. And then those characters' personalities would stand out. But then when she got to this new section of the story, I don't know these people and she doesn't know these people. And I just felt like it sort of didn't work for me because I wanted her to have more time to get to know these people and for these relationships to matter. And when that starts to be the feeling I have toward a book, then I start to not care really what happens to anybody, because if somebody died and the girl was upset, I'd be like, you don't really know. I mean, it's sad for people to die in stories, of course, but like, you don't know them though, you know? So like I said, I would absolutely read something else by this author. The next two are new releases from this year that I was very excited for, and they would be Half Sick of Shadows and The Jasmine Throne. So Half Sick of Shadows is sort of a King Arthur retelling from the Lady of Shalot's point of view, and it's kind of a fractured timeline, and it's told in different tenses in the story depending on if it's the past, present, or future kind of feeling. And I thought it was interesting, and I actually was enjoying it, but it's a story that I definitely think it's the themes that stand out. If you're looking for more of a historical feeling King Arthur, I would say check out the book Lancelot. I haven't read Bernard Cornwell's stories, but I believe that he's also written some very historical, like King Arthur stories. That's not what this was. It was very thematic. And something like The Kingdom of Back, which I love, is also very thematic and very hit or miss for a lot of people, but I loved that one. This one, I got a decent amount through and I was enjoying it well enough. And then I went on a trip with my husband. We went to the Glacier National Park, which I'm still hoping to eventually get a vlog up of that trip. But either way, I went on this trip and I came back and I was like, I don't care. I didn't care to keep reading and to finish it and to find out what happened next. And it's not that kind of a story, really. It's not really a what's going to happen. Oh my gosh, I'm edge of my seat. It's really truly about the feeling and the emotions and things like that. And I just don't know that I was really clicking with it. So I figured I just DNF'd it. Jasmine Throne, this one I went back and forth as to whether I should keep going or not, and ultimately decided not to. So this one is a very fascinating world and a very interesting magic system. We follow a character who clearly has something going on in her past. It doesn't seem like she knows all of that much, but she knows some things about her past, and they clearly make her a significant person or an important person, but she is currently living kind of going under the radar sort of a life. She doesn't really want to draw attention to herself. And it's a multiple POV story, so you're getting other characters as well. And one of them has a horrible brother who was gonna force her to do something very terrible, and she didn't want to do it, and so they can't force her to do it though. He was kind of basically trying to encourage her, but she didn't do it, and he can't make her. I know a second ago I said was basically forcing her, but he can't actually make her, otherwise the act itself doesn't have the same meaning. She has to do it of her own free will, and she doesn't want to do it, so he's kind of trying to make her as miserable as possible until she finally decides, okay, fine, I'll do it. And then you have some other characters that are associated with that person, or they're associated with the other person in some fashion. The magic seemed so interesting. However, it was the kind of story where you only really know what's going on with the magic as the story progresses very slowly. It's definitely not, here's a tutorial of how the magic works kind of a book, which I'm okay with, except that it felt like a lot of the pacing, a lot of the high stakes moments, a lot of the, oh my gosh, what moments kind of revolved around having knowledge of the magic, but you're kept in the dark, and it's sort of a mysterious feeling as to, I don't know what's going on. Okay, wait, this just happened, so what the heck is going on? And sometimes I love that. Sometimes I love being like, what? I don't get it. What is going on? Sometimes I love that feeling, and other times I'm just like, can I know? Can someone tell me in and fill me in, please? And that was more so the feeling I had with this one. I just felt like so much of the amazing what the heck moments would have been more powerful if I actually knew how stuff worked. And I do want to say, for all of these, in case you're wondering, like, well, how far did you get? I was, I think, 270-ish pages into the book, and you start to get explanations to things, but ultimately I just didn't feel like that whole first part, I'm okay with a slower moving beginning, but I just didn't find I ever really felt like I had everything I needed to fully appreciate the story, in a sense. However, that's not to say that the book objectively fails to have you kept involved in what's going on. It's just that for me, this particular time, it didn't work. There have been other instances where it does, and this one, I just found it didn't. The characters were pretty interesting, but I know a big thing about the marketing with this one was the romance aspect of the story, and as far as I had gotten into the book, not a whole lot had really happened. Like, the romance wasn't that big of a part of the story, and maybe it gets to be more so a part of the story, but if it does, I would expect it to be slower. So if you're somebody who maybe the romantic aspects you were thinking would be really heavy and that kept you away from this book, I would say you should go for it, because the romance really wasn't that much a part of it. And if you're somebody who wanted a big part of the romance, I mean, maybe later it's there a little more, but I would say that the marketing, I think, perhaps made it seem like it was going to be a bigger deal than it was. Those were the books that I DNF'd. Getting into some other books that I took in. So one series I ended up taking in and I unhauled would be the Red Queen series. So I had read the first 2 books in the series years ago, and I had the other 2 books because it's a quartet. And enough time went by where I thought I'd have to reread the first 2 to appreciate the 3rd and 4th. Otherwise, I'm not going to have any idea what's going on, and I'm probably not going to care about anybody. But I just don't know that I want to go back and reread those first couple, and I don't know that I even care that much about what happens. It's not a super new story, it's a little bit older, and I think also, even when it first came out, one of the complaints was that it was too tropey, meaning it utilized tropes that we've seen used time and time again, and not necessarily in a unique or fresh way. So I think if I went back, it would especially feel like that now, since it's been a few years. So I took that series in. I also took in Dividing Eden and Eden Conquered. I read also Dividing Eden a long time ago, and I remember liking it well enough. It followed these sibling characters, and one of them, I think there's something, a physical ailment that they have that affects them, but they can't tell anybody it's been so long, so I apologize for butchering the description. But I liked it at the time that I read it. I obviously can't tell you very much about it. I don't remember it very well. But I know that the sister character, I think there was some kind of competition or something, and she had to kick a bunch of butt. And it was interesting, and the ending was definitely kind of a dun-dun-dun type of ending, and I wanted to pick up the sequel. I just never got around to it. And I think too much time has passed, and better that somebody else find the books and think like, what's this? I also took in Once a King. So I had read Ever the Hunted and Ever the Brave, and on Goodreads, if I'm not mistaken, this book, Once a King, is listed as the 3rd book in that series. So Ever the Hunted and Ever the Brave, I actually really liked the romance in the story, and I liked our main characters. So the story follows a girl, Britta, who's been tasked with finding her father's killer, and they believe that her father's killer is her childhood best friend / kind of her love. And so she's tasked with finding this person, and you're wondering, did he kill her dad? If he did, why? Or is he being set up? What's going on? And I liked the first one pretty well. I thought the second one definitely, I feel terrible saying this, I felt like it didn't really need to happen. It sort of, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, so I feel like even the tropes, mentioning those, are maybe a little revealing of what's to happen. But I actually think that the main couple is one of my favorite couples that I've come across in a story, and I liked the author's writing. The second one, it was like every trope you could think of that a lot of us don't love, they kind of had them. So then I was getting toward the end of the book, and I'm like, kind of feels like this book is wrapping up. And then it did wrap up, and I'm like, what the heck is the 3rd one about? And then it turns out the 3rd one is a companion book that follows a different character that was introduced in the duology. It follows that character, and it's like their book. So it's almost like a standalone companion that came after. It's not actually a 3rd book. And I figured, I have it, I should probably read it at some point. But I don't know that I really wanted to that bad. It was more of like, I have it because I thought it was the 3rd book in this series, but it turns out it's not, so now what? And the now what turned into, I'll go ahead and take it in. Last book that I took in, I don't love doing this, but I took in a book that I never even tried, and I feel bad, but I've just heard some things about this story, and I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like it. So it was a book of the month pick for me. It may have been an add-on, actually. I think I'd seen some people talk about it, and I was like, oh, okay. And so I had a credit, because I actually do have a book of the month account. I had a credit, and I was like, I'm gonna add this one, and it was Fate of the Fallen. And the main idea is that what if the chosen one basically is a fool, and his best friend has to help him accomplish all of the stereotypical chosen ones type of things, right? But I know one friend of mine just thought it was like a really good time. Alex from Alex Nieves, he liked it a lot. But then Jessie from Jessie May did not like it. And Jessie and I don't always agree on things, but I feel like if she really doesn't like something for certain reasons, I feel like she's less picky about certain things than me. So I'm like, even she thinks that certain things are maybe not the best, and I'm like, well, I don't think I'm gonna like it either, and just some other things I've heard. So blame Jessie if you really love that series. Just kidding. Don't go bother Jessie. Those are some books that I DNF'd and or took in recently. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. If you think any of these sound interesting, go for it. Pick them up. I would love to know your thoughts, but I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.